So they get through a relationship, they get married, they decide they're going to have a baby, or they get pregnant to find love. Yeah. And we have to imagine that hypervigilance. Firstly, just off the top, without abuse in the picture, the hypervigilance around what is happening in her body, right? I had a young woman that just got pregnant. I guess she's about 3 months, 4 months now. But, you know, all she could feel was the changes in her uterus and her hormones, and just hyper fixated on the physical that, I mean, she was wanting to go get an abortion, right? She was like, I can't do this. I can't feel, right? I can't rest feeling this activity inside of my body, right? That is a huge thing, right? I mean, she was in absolute crisis. I was meeting this woman almost every day, right? Trying to, because this is something she wanted so desperately. So again, that duality between what is wanted, the idea of what that's supposed to look like, and resting into what is happening. Yeah, because if you start fixating, like a super hypersensitive person can feel the blood going through their veins if they start thinking about it, right? They can feel everything that's happening in all of their systems if they choose to think about it. And then you have another life, right? Growing. I mean, when the baby started moving for me, I was at the doctor every day. I didn't even know what to do with that, right? And then you're at the doctor every day and you're dealing with all the touching, right? A lot of the sexual pieces show up in that, like the flashbacks start coming, night terrors, right? Because this young woman is going to now need that information that's held in those amnesiatic loops, right? So the universe is going, I don't care if you're ready, you made this choice for this baby, boom, you need to know what happened so that you can prevent it, right? And keep your children safe, right? So we have to recognize that as this baby is gestating, her hypervigilance is there, her body's outwardly changing, and her body has been her avenue for attention, right? And while she knows she should be happy, she is completely upside down, right? Now, this is a generational cycle that we must be aware of. Teenage parents have teenage parents have teenage parents. And, you know, that search for love is, and for mom, right? So in that pregnancy, in that getting pregnant, they're not only fulfilling, right? They're fulfilling their idea of family. They're fulfilling love, like this child can't run away from it. You know, it's almost in that immature space, like getting a puppy that somebody else is going to take care of. Yeah. And the dynamic between mom and daughter, right, become more like siblings, right? That in a place of childhood sexual abuse, the limbs of the tree are out of whack as well. Does that make sense when I say that? Right? You know, where rather than mom being an authority, she's trying to operate in friendship. And, you know, so the child is really getting very little guidance, right? And they move into those relationships not even knowing what that means. Now, when this amnesia starts breaking down in a flood like this because of an incident, it is like an avalanche, right? It truly is like an avalanche. It's like you've been living in a house of glass and suddenly the floors are caving in and you have no idea what is real, what is true, right? Everything you thought you knew and you pasted together with the Scotch tape is eroding right under your feet, right? And when you start recognizing that the people that you thought were protecting and taking care of you are in the abuser roles today, yeah, it's like going and hiding in a closet, right? I mean, that's how isolated this person ends up with, right? And when you're excluded from that original nest, it's very difficult to see, right, what you do have. So it's very important as these pieces are coming in for your clients to help them organize them and reflect out on their current life. Yeah. The flashbacks, have you guys had flashbacks?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Have you, Vanessa?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's true. A true flashback is different than having an emotional response from yesterday. A true flashback is like you are reliving that, right? As if it were happening in that moment. Yeah. What happened for me was the night terrors. And, you know, I find with a lot of my folks, they are dreaming their truths. And, you know, which again is a place where you're like, is that true? Right? If I'm having these dreams and all this is like, and nobody is validating, right, what is happening, like your truth is constantly being challenged in these situations. And, you know, the getting over it, right, that could happen very readily if the other players, the people that I call the watchers in the scenario, actually owned up, right? And that ends up being the consistent trauma that follows them throughout their lives. Now, when we're dissecting these folks' dreams, right, often they're trying to interpret them from their adultness. And we have to recognize that these dreams are rising up out of simplicity. And when we're interpreting them, the more complex we're making them, the less true we are. So keep that in your awareness, right? Often these dreams are very simple and very childlike. For example, I used to have a reoccurring dream as I was, you know, in my late teens and all this awareness was coming up. And I started having these dreams that my boyfriend, who actually told my mother that I was being molested and that I had been, but that he took me to the hospital and I was having so much pain in my arm that they decided to amputate my arm. And you know, they lasered it off. There was no bleeding, there was no goo, there was no residue, and they sent me out, and I could still feel my arm and it still hurt just the same, right? Which is that phantom pain from amputation. And Spirit was very clear, right? That's very clear. You can cut these people out of your life. You can fight with them for an eternity, and you're still going to be able to feel your fingers throbbing, right? That isn't going to be the resolution to your pain. They are not going to change it. Yeah. Now, being in a room, a delivery room, or an exam room with a team of doctors, that with a woman. Now, as we've spoken, right, that the reaction to sexual trauma from childhood out goes from frigidity to promiscuity, right? And, you know, her being in that space and having all these people around, people touching, you know, that is going to have her in complete overwhelm, right? Having a really good doula during pregnancy is super powerful. Somebody that has developed a relationship with this young woman that she can really trust, right? That the touch is something she's already familiar with, can be very helpful. You know, yeah, well, we've spoken about this, you know, that their bodies, the changes in their bodies. I'm not sure if you all like experience this, but like I can remember feeling like I had a dog. I mean, there was very little connection to the baby because I was so freaked out by all the sensations, right? You know, being able to feel the baby moving, being able to, you know, while your brain is feeling joy, that innateness is in hypervigilance around every twinge, right? And making stories around it, you know? You know, and when you're trying to live from a storybook and you're trying to recreate something or create something that you've never had, right? These questions start filing in. How can I be a mom when I've never had one? And I don't know what that looks like really, right? So she's reading tons of books. She's like everything under the sun to try to create what that should look like from an external picture, right? And they often have very little female support around them because everybody is in this space of almost mirroring back rather than engaging. Now, these babies coming out of a gestation can almost be like crack babies, right? And they're afraid for no reason that they can define. And, you know, being able to walk a woman through out of crisis and into a place where her baby can gestate in peace, right? There's nothing more beautiful, because if this information is dumping in and this person is in overwhelm, chaos, hypervigilance, right? Almost to the point of wanting to push the baby away because they don't know, even while it's in their body, what to do with it or think about it, right? So when they've got it in their hands, they're like, oh my God, right? And it's probably screaming, right? And then come in the dumps of, my baby doesn't like me, I'm a terrible mom, like, why would my baby not want me, right? And that scenario creates another pocket for the next human being. And, you know, the contagion of the bacteria is spread forward, right? So if we can get this woman to plant a new tree, and often that's my conversation with this, right? Say, hey, listen, right? You know, being a part of a tree that is rotten is, you know, is not serving you. So why don't we choose to plant a new tree over here? And you get to choose. Again, that forgiveness space is a space that is an evolution for a person coming through this. And, you know, I'm always reinforcing, turn the other cheek, like, you know, that childlike energy. If you're getting your child to turn the other cheek, like his eyes are focused in a new and different direction, and he's going to be interested in something else, we're able to redirect. And that is our goal here with this young woman. Now, there's also comes the dance with the man as all of this is happening, right? So the relationship is starting to shake, right? And all the awareness is focused inside, and the man is already starting to feel rejected. And that dance becomes quite the dance, right? And, you know, getting her into a place of authority around this pregnancy and understanding that she does have the instincts and capabilities that she needs, you know. Now, parenting. This is a piece that I don't think goes in the books, and maybe few people admit to. I can remember my body responding to things while my adult consciousness was trying to hang on, right? So those sexual urges start showing up usually around the same time that a person started being violated, right? Now, your body reacting and your brain screaming is that space is a guilt like that. I don't think very many people admit that. I can remember, you know, diapering my first child and my body reacting to that, and my brain, right, just became fireworks. I don't even know the words to say, right? And I hurried up and put her diaper on, put her in the crib, locked her in her room, and left my house. Now, those kind of things had to happen for me a lot, right? Where, you know, she was like a crack baby, right? She cried 24/7. And, you know, that hypervigilance of sound and touch, right? She never wanted me to put her down. There was so much happening with the sensitivity and the flashbacks and the natural, or not natural, but they were for me, I guess, the programming that was rising out, right? You know, she learned to walk at 7 months to console me, right? To pat me on the back as I was in a crumble. So the upside down in those relationships also comes in from the beginning, where, you know, the child is saying, well, obviously this person can't really take care of me and I need to take care of her. you know, we also have to recognize that men get quite the rap in this arena. And what I can say from my practice is I have just as many people abused by women as abused by men, and I'm speaking sexually. And, you know, bottom line is we have birthed every man on this planet, and every man and every woman had a mother who either did her job or didn't. Yeah. Right. And, you know, this knight in shining armor and damsel in distress is kind of absurd, and a lack of personal responsibility for woman to a degree, right? I do find that, you know, people that are abused by their mothers have a much higher hill decline. And, you know, I can say, right, there were times that I could see the whites of my mother's eyes while men had their fingers inside of me. And, you know, back against the wall, who are you mad at? Are you mad at the men? Or are you mad at your mom? Right? Where do you go from there if you know that your mother knew? Right? And we can also say that, you know, for a child to be the other woman at age 5 is a complexity that adults blow up over, right? For an adult to be the other woman and having sex with a married person, and, you know, bringing that complexity of maneuvering that triangle into their lives is a choice for an adult, you know. And this kid recognizing that they're the other woman and they're treated like the other woman by their mother. Yeah. And, you know, complexity enters everything. So we've got a child over here coloring, and we've got this child over here that's having to be the sexual partner to a married person. Now, another level of this, you know, I've worked with a lot of women whose husbands or partners have cheated on them, and they always know. Like, there's an inkling, like, where is my man laying his seed down? And if that's being true, and the seed is being released under the roof of that woman, it's difficult for me to reconcile that there isn't a level of knowingness. I've also worked with a lot of moms on the other side of that, and, you know, often they let things slip that make what I'm saying true. You know, I was working with this woman whose daughter had been molested, and she kept claiming she didn't know. And what was true is she had asked her daughter 3 separate times by the age of 12, right? Starting at 5. Had 3 different times. And, you know, she doesn't claim that that was true, but it's true. I mean, we ended up, by the end, she claimed that was true. And through those conversations, she would be so angry and adamant that she had no idea. And then she would say, when he just like almost like dementia, like where it would pop through, she would say something like, well, if he was in her room, he wasn't bothering me. Yeah. So, you know, I find it very difficult to think that mom doesn't know. and uncovering that, like this young woman and I have worked through a lot. And it took her being home for Christmas and being in her mother's house. She started having night terrors around actually telling her mother straight out when she was 7. Right. And nothing changed. Yeah. So we have to recognize that, if the words are said out loud, if you know that mom sees the value that this person feels on the planet is, kind of like a dandelion. Yeah. For everybody's trying to get rid of you. Yeah. Now, these urges, like I was talking